So what the next part of our goal was in this education day was to bring in some folks that we know that are already out there doing some of the things that Bruce is talking about, and that is moving our industry into the areas that we're going to have to go in the future to be successful, because we cannot stand still as with the way social media and everything else works now. We've got to keep up, and so we've brought some people in here that are experts in different fields, and I'm just going to give you the profile of each one of them, and each one of them is going to speak for approximately 20 minutes, and at that point we will open the discussion up for all these young folks, some of the older folks, and maybe even some of those 40-year-olds that are scant but scattered among the crowd. So our first speaker this morning is going to be Dr. Murray Jelinski. Dr. Jelinski is a veterinarian with a master's degree in epidemiology. Shortly after graduation, Dr. Jelinski established a mixed animal practice in Saskatchewan. Murray embarked upon a career with the Canadian veterinary pharmaceutical industry. So please welcome Dr. Murray Jelinski.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about demographics, and I think it fits in really well with a couple comments this morning, particularly age. And you might not like the presentation I'm going to give you, but it's reality, okay? And sometimes I get in trouble with my colleagues and producers, and they're kind of going like, shoot the messenger. And so keep your guns in your holsters. Just remember, I'm just giving you the message. I'm not the person that made the industry or the demographics of the industry. I was going to give a bio, but I see we've already kind of covered that. I will say that I was a classmate of Dr. Molnar's, who's in the room right now. Many of you might know Paul. And I suspect that Paul, in his wildest dreams, never thought he'd ever see me standing in front of his clients and colleagues in Merritt, BC, giving a talk. So without further ado, let's start from here. So one of the things we come into is when I kind of looked at the overall agenda of the program is, when I read it, it's tell us what do you think the future is going to be in the 5, 10, 15, 20-year range. And so I was kind of thinking, what we got to predict the future. And then I read more carefully, and I'm not very astute at time, how to be successful. Well, I'm not going to tell you how to be successful. You've already been successful. You've already come through BSc. You've come through many other things. For a professor from the University of Saskatchewan with no livestock background as far as raising animals, to come tell you how to be successful, I don't think so. But I will tell you what I kind of foresee what's going to happen with the demographics in the coming years. So just a quick overview. I think we all kind of know where our cattle are coming from or where they're raised. You can sort of see BC's contribution, which I thought was interesting, was as much as Quebec's. Just sort of, that was just my little overview of the industry. So as many of you may be aware, there's a often refrained comment in the financial industry when you're looking at investing in stock markets or anything else. The trend is your friend, or don't fight the tape. If the stock market's going up, don't be betting it's going to be going down, right? So today's the question to you, is the trend your friend? Is the trend your friend? It can be or it might not be, depending on your own personal situation. So this is just an overview of the cattle industry, the number of cows we've had over the last number of years. You can kind of see we got the blip up there in after sort of our run of BSc cows. The industry came back down, and we're probably starting to climb back up again. This is the trend that scares me. Can scare me, but this is the reality. We often stop and we think, you know, we got to do more. We got to keep the young people on the farm. We have to maintain the number of farms. We do, absolutely. I think we all agree with that fundamental message. But this is the trend. This is the trend. We see this all the time. And this, I get this quite a bit because my position as the beef chair at Saskatoon was created in about 2000. And the reason it was created is it was ostensibly we had this great big shortage of food animal practitioners in Western Canada. That's what we were told. Huge shortage of food animal practitioners. We got to address this huge issue. we don't really have a shortage of food animal practitioners, and we probably never have, really. The reality is the industry is consolidating, and we're never going to have an explosion. It's highly unlikely all of a sudden that line is going to turn around and start going back, right? So that's the reality. We might not like that, but that is the reality. We've been, since the 1940s, we've had fewer and fewer farms. And why is that? Coming out of World War II, we learned about mechanization, and everything started becoming mechanized on the farm. This is called a population pyramid. And so, if you can imagine, this is from 1991. The middle line, the middle axis, is the ages of the producers, okay? So you got people less than, I can't quite read it from here, less than 25, 26 to 30. Those are all the age range. Females on the left, males on the right, the number of producers on the bottom. So what that basically tells you in a snapshot, you have a whole bunch of older people, greater than 60. You got, in 1991, more or less, an even distribution of males and females between all the ages of 35 up to just about 60 years of age. That's what things look like. Come to one of your conferences in 1991, you'd have a fairly even mix in the crowd of people by age. This is what it looks like in 2011. So now what do you see? Now you see a very, very small base to the pyramid, right? And it's becoming increasingly kind of top heavy. Why is that? What fundamentally is happening? Why is that happening? And this isn't unique to you guys. This is what the population of Canada looks like. In North America. This is the population of most westernized countries in the world. Anybody want to take a guess why this is happening? The baby boom, right? We're seeing that's the effects of the baby boomers, right? We had this great big bulge or cohort of people born between 46 and 60 years, 1946 and 1960, and they're just all moving through the population now. And so back here, they're a lot younger. The boom is, the bulge is kind of moving all up. We advanced 20 years, and now you're starting to see we're just on the cusp. We're just getting on the cusp of people from the baby boomer. The front wave of the baby boomers are just retiring. We hear this in the news all the time, right? I'm not telling you anything new, but I think when you look at it graphically, you go, holy smokes, things really are changing. And so you ask, the point was made, we need to engage our younger people in the industry, absolutely, more now so than ever because there's such a narrow or small group of them on the bottom. So this is just if you look at them one over top of another. You can just sort of see that dramatic change. And so if you imagine taking those top two lines and advancing them, take them off the equation, take them out in 10 years, how many people are you going to lose? We'll get to that here in a minute. And so the beef industry is not alone. We talk about, the quota system saving the dairy industry, and that, because everything's market supply managed there, that you're going to keep more dairies around. That's not really what's happening either. The number of dairy farms reporting is on the way down. It's not decreasing. The number of farms isn't decreasing as fast as in the beef, but it is decreasing, and they're seeing the exact same thing. Their herd sizes are getting larger and larger, particularly if you go out into Atlantic Canada and into Western Canada in particular. You're getting a lot more consolidation in those two regions in the dairy industry than you are in Quebec. Quebec's they still have the smallest dairies, the most number of dairies, and I think we can appreciate that's a policy that's driving that. So in summary, for this part, from 2006 to 2011, the number of cow-calf producers and farms in Canada decreased by 25%. That's one census year. That's what we're looking at. Stats Canada comes out with their 2006 census. Look at the data. 5 years later, we do the 2011 census. We're going to have another census coming up. So imagine we lost 25% of the producers in 5 years. The reason that's significant, as I just mentioned, is that the baby boomers are just starting. You're just on on the front edge of the retirements, right? So a little bit scary. So as of 2011, 2/3 almost of producers were over 50 years of age. A third of them were over 60 years of age. I don't know if that surprises any of you. It surprises me. It doesn't surprise me that, yes, we appreciate the industry's getting heavily weighted to older producers, but the sheer numbers of it I find surprising. 4% of producers are under 31 years of age. So again, it speaks to the need. If you're going to recruit people, you're going to have to recruit all the young people out there. You really will. Therefore, for 7 producers nearing or entering retirement, you have 4 that are interested in coming into the industry. So the cow-calf industry, as is many other industries, you're just on the cusp of profound change. I hear people talk about, we had a lot of turnover in land, and a lot of people have been retiring lately. It's like, no, that's just the beginning of it. We're just on the beginning of it right now. Those greater than 50 years of age represent, again, 2/3 of the producers. So consider that from 2006 to 2011, we lost 25% of producers, a period just when the leading edge is starting. Just kind of reiterate that. So based on a very conservative estimate, by 2011, we'll have lost at least 40% more of our producers, at least. That's very conservative. That's assuming a lot of people are going to continue to stay on the farm and work in a meaningful way well past 60 years of age, or 65. So I'm going to just take a little bit of a right turn here. So that's sort of the demographic data. This is something that I often, when we get talking about predicting the future, why I think most predictions never come true is we can't predict what they call the black swan effect. And this is an author, his name's Nassim Taleb, and he came out with this book about the black swan. And it's basically predicting events. So for him, a black swan event is something that's a rare and a probable event that has an extreme impact. And then retrospectively, you go, oh yeah, I could see that one coming. But you couldn't foresee it. What's a good example of that in the cattle industry? Did we see BSC coming? Oh, in hindsight we did. Oh yeah, that was obvious, right? How could that not have happened? We brought all these animals in from Europe. How could that? We already had evidence 10 years before that there had been some BSC animals come in. So it was a rare and improbable event. It had an extreme impact, right? And then retrospectively go, oh yeah, I could see that coming. The other obvious one, and kind of an ugly one, is 9/11, right? 9/11, rare and improbable, extreme impact, and then we look back and we go, oh yeah, these guys are training on these planes down in the States. How could we have missed that? How could they had 2 jets go into the trade towers? It's so obvious now, right? And we don't see a lot of these black swan events. So there's all sorts of them in the past. BSE, foot and mouth, swine influenza, the U.S. drought, changed the cattle industry for leaving us where we're at with our high prices right now. And so what's the future? I'm not really sure. But you can't help, somewhat speaking where Bruce came from this morning, about the animal rights agenda and just people that are trying to drive the bus, but they don't really have the map and they really are clueless about driving that bus, and they're driving the bus. So the other thing I want to make a point of is I think often we think that we live a little bit in a bubble. We look over to Europe and we see all the animal rights activity that's going on over there. In the Nordic countries now, you can't castrate animals after a week of age or whatever it is. And we think, that's not going to happen here. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen really fast. Where we think these changes that happened over in Europe took 20, 25 years for their animal rights activity and movements to make those changes over there. They happen now over here in the matter of weeks and months, right? So all of a sudden someone decides to put some pressure on Tim Hortons, and the next thing you know, they come out and surprise the entire pig industry by saying we're getting rid of gestation crates. It's like we didn't discuss that yet. There is no discussion here. We're just going to do it. McDonald's comes back, well, if somebody's going to do that, we got to follow up, so gestation crates are out for them too. Safeways comes along and basically follows suit. And then yesterday, I was looking through my emails, so May 22nd, so this week, Walmart releases, about antibiotic usage, and they're also concerned about castration, dehorning, pain management, all these other things, right? So that's interesting. Walmart's saying we're not making it mandatory for our suppliers at this time to follow these things, but they're already saying to the industry, you better be aware that we might not want animals in the future that haven't had pain control during dehorning and castration. So how long do you think that's going to be before they say, you know what? No, that's mandatory. That's going to be mandatory. Is that 6 months? Is that 6 years? I don't know. Probably closer to 6 months and 6 years. And keep in mind that Walmart's one of the biggest retailers of meat in the U.S. So when they send that shot across the bow, that that reverberates through the whole industry. I also thought this one was interesting. Again, just came out last week. So New Zealand comes out and legally recognizes animals as sentient beings. That is, they can feel things. They can perceive their environment. They're not an insect. They're not a plant. Animals are closer to us. We have to start treating them like us. New Zealand's a major agricultural country, right? Huge milk producer, huge sheep producer. And so for the New Zealanders to come out and say that, again, that reverberates through the whole industry. How can you as an island say, we're not into that. We're not going to do that. Well, that's funny because the whole world's going that way. And what are you going to be left behind? You can't be left behind. You're going to get pulled into that. You will get pulled into it. Whether you like it or not, we will get pulled into that. And again, to reiterate, these things aren't, we'll see what happens in 10, 15 years. It won't really matter. I'm going to probably be out. I'm not going to be farming anyways. Don't really have anybody leave the farm too. I'll sell off. I'm good. No, that might very well affect all the people in this room here. So in conclusion, consolidation truly is being driven by demographics and economics. And I think more demographics than anything, right? Sure, people are getting bigger for cost of production and all those things. But the demographic thing you can't escape from. You just can't escape from. So the future is fewer but much larger operations. I think we can appreciate that. The age demographics is unlikely to change. You look in the next 10 years, we're still going to probably come to a meeting like this and look around the room and say, we need to have more young people in here. That's not going to probably, the change, the pyramid is still going to be dominated by older people. And I think we need to be aware of the black swan events. You can't really protect yourself against them because they're so unpredictable. But I think when people stand up and say, I think this is where we're going to be in 10 years or 15 years, it's like, that's assuming. That's assuming that nothing goes sideways. That's assuming there's no major droughts. That's assuming there's no major policy changes with the government. That all of a sudden someone doesn't come out with a study tomorrow saying, we have to cut our beef consumption by half, blah, blah, blah. All those other things. That's assuming everything continues as normal without any sort of outside events. And consumers, and I think, again, speaks to what Bruce was saying, will increasingly become the drivers of food animal production. And again, we don't like that, but as an industry, I think at times, I think it's fair to say we've probably failed in pulling our resources together to get out the proper message. And I think the proper message does get out from time to time. I still believe that the average consumer trusts the average producer when they make that connection. For the most part, I think there's still lots of goodwill between the consumer and the producers. But I'm not so sure going forward when you hear the A&W commercial that just irritates the hell out of me all the time. Not sure if anybody owns an A&W in the room, and I apologize for that, but only very small. Get your facts straight. I don't care. Go out. Market hormone-free beef. That's not a problem. But don't tell me it tastes better. don't skew the message, right? And so I think when we get a lot of that misinformation, again, what Bruce is talking about, and those people are driving the bus, that's our challenge.